BBC chairman Richard Sharp has resigned. He had to after an inquiry committee found that he had breached the code on public appointments. This arose after the inquiry found that Richard Sharp had influenced and arranged a loan guarantee for Boris Johnson when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. Boris Johnson, it turned out, needed quickly an amount of £800,000. Why he suddenly needed $1 million or whatever is not very clear. Some reports suggest he needed it for maintenance costs and a divorce settlement. But clearly Boris Johnson needed that money urgently, and he needed it to be sanctioned from the cabinet headed then by the official Simon Case. What the loan needed was a guarantor, and Richard Sharp stepped in to arrange that. He introduced Boris Johnson to his friend Sam Blythe, a Canadian financier, who then stood in as guarantor, and Boris Johnson could immediately get a substantial part of that loan that he was looking for, and the rest was cleared. This inquiry found, of course, that the circumstances themselves were suspicious. Richard Sharp arranged that introduction that led to the loan, and weeks later Richard Sharp was appointed as chairman of BBC. The inquiry report now finds two clear points of conflict of interest. One, not only was this circumstantial that Richard Sharp arranged the loan and then he got the job as BBC chair, it turns out that Richard Sharp had told Boris Johnson that he was interested in the job of BBC chairperson before that appointment came and before that loan. And second, hardly coincidentally, Richard Sharp also mentioned to Prime Minister Boris Johnson at that time that he could arrange a guarantee for that loan. So here was Richard Sharp saying he's looking for that job as BBC chair, that he could arrange the guarantee. He does arrange the guarantee and he gets the job. And this inquiry report now finds that Richard Sharp was not transparent in disclosing to the committee, in disclosing to the government, to the cabinet office, that he had stepped in this fashion, that he had arranged the loan and at the same time was looking for the job, and that he had told Boris Johnson of both issues. This of course does raise now questions again for former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, already facing a number of inquiries over Partygate and other codes of conduct that he is said to have breached. This will also raise questions why the BBC former chairman now Richard Sharp did not resign earlier. Surely he knew what he had disclosed then to the inquiry committee. He did not have to wait for the inquiry committee to make the noting that it now has. So questions will be asked why he did not resign earlier. There will be questions also for the present government to answer, and Labour has raised that already, why Rishi Sunak did not sack Richard Sharp given the facts. This is going to be a matter that will continue for some time. Its hangover will be with us for some time, but really at the bottom of this is the very serious question whether a BBC chairman has been transparent and clear and straightforward in his dealings with the public as the chair of an organization that swears to live by those values.